Afternoon, guys. Well, morning slash afternoon. It's 11:44, almost afternoon. I am here to talk about another classic right here. Curtis Mayfield released his third album, Superfly, and it's the soundtrack to the same name as the movie. This album was released 54 years ago of 1972 of July 11th. And man, I gotta let y'all know this album is still a classic to this day. It's a phenomenal classic. It's one of my all-time favorites. I love the whole entire album. I do love Little Child Runnin Wild, and of course, Gimme Your Love, Superfly, the title track, Pusherman, Freddie's Dead, Junkie Chase, I already mentioned, Eddie, You Should Know Better, No Thang on Me, Think, man, just so much classics. And you got the legendary Ron O'Neal and Sheila Frazier. And you also got Carl Lee, Julius Harris, Charles McGregor, the whole entire cast. But anyways, I wanted to get into it. It was released through Curtom Records as the soundtrack for the blaxploitation film of the same name, I already mentioned. And the album was Mayfield's first full soundtrack and his third solo effort since leaving the Impressions. And Superfly was a commercial success, peaking at #1 on the Billboard Top 200 chart, Billboard Top 200 chart, and selling over, and I mean over 500,000 copies in the U.S., with an estimated 1.5 million sold in total. And the album outsold the film it accompanied with performance bolstered by Hot 100 Top 10 singles, Freddie's Dead, and the title track, Superfly. And the critical and commercial success of Superfly led to its nomination for Best Score Soundtrack for Visual Media at the 15th Annual Grammy Awards, losing to Nino Rota's The Godfather of 1971. And the album remains as one of the only 3 blaxploitation soundtracks to be nominated for a Grammy, alongside Isaac Hayes Jr.'s Shaft 1971 and the Norman Whitfield Rolls-Royce collaboration Car Wash of 1977. Due to the soundtrack's success, Mayfield was tapped to produce several film soundtracks over the course of the decade in collaboration with high-profile soul artists such as Gladys Knight and the Pips, the Staple Singers, and Aretha Franklin. Definitely legends right there. And the album Superfly was one of the first soul concept albums. It was noted for its stark lyrics about poverty and drug abuse, which were informed both by Mayfield's disagreements with the film's neutral treatment of drugs and drug dealers, and his personal experience growing up around the dangers of both. As y'all know that he is from Chi-Town, was from Chi-Town. And the album is frequently sampled and interpolated by modern artists and represents one of the high watermarks of arguably the most fertile and creative era in soul music's history for its lyrical messaging and influence on both contemporary soul and the nascent genres of hip-hop and rap, which y'all know that rappers and hip-hop artists definitely sample Curtis Mayfield stuff, especially this one right here. They do sample the song like Pusherman and, of course, Little Child Runnin Wild, you name it all. So the album is often cited as one of the best albums of all time, and which it is. This album is still a classic to this day, to let y'all know. So more history to it, to get into it. Mayfield had previously contributed, excuse me, had contributed 2 songs to Krakatoa, East of Java, which marked his first foray into soundtrack work. Following his departure from the Impressions of 1970 and his first solo release, Curtis, 1970, and Roots, 1971, and Mayfield's next soundtrack project began with a suggestion from Gordon Parks Jr., and Parks' son of Shaft director Gordon Parks was working on Superfly as his directorial debut and asked Mayfield and his backing band to cameo in a scene as a nightclub, as y'all see it in the movie, act in the background. Parks wanted a full song to play in the scene, which led to the beginning of the soundtrack sessions. And man, that was an amazing scene in the movie. Man, love Curtis Mayfield. He will always be a legend forever. So the recording session for the song Pusherman took place at Bell Sound Studios in New York, followed by a months-long hiatus. While Mayfield focused on other projects, writing the impression times have changed and working on his own album, Back to the World, the instrumentals for the remaining songs were produced in a 3-day session at a former RCA studio in Chicago, which involved an in-studio band of as many as 40 performers. Regarding the recording environment, guitarist Craig McMullen states the advantage of it is if you have a full orchestra, when you place your licks, you don't have to worry about your licks bumping. You can hear everything that's going to go down. And the album was primarily by Mayfield from a basement apartment in Chicago while undergoing a trial separation from his wife and children. Mayfield drew on his own experience to relate to the film and so informed his songwriting, telling Rolling Stone, "I didn't have to leave my neighborhood to understand what Superfly was about." Mayfield was at odds with how the pitfalls of drug use were addressed by the film. Per his second wife, Althea Mayfield, Curtis thought Superfly was a commercial to sell cocaine and he wanted to turn that around. And that was his main purpose there, to say, this is nothing pretty. This informed the album's lyrics, which were centered on the ills of a culture that the film depicted on more ambiguous terms. And the album was originally released in 1972 on Curtom Records, and both LP and 8 tracks. Y'all know the 8 tracks back in the day. Formats. 3 weeks prior to the release of the accompanying film, with additional distribution handled through Europe and Asia by Buddha Records. And the release was complicated by a dispute with arranger Johnny Pate over songwriting credit on the song Think, which would mark the end of Mayfield and Pate's working relationship. And November 11th of 1997, Rhino Records had released a 25th anniversary collection of the album with a bonus disc of the demo versions of songs, radio spots, and interviews with Mayfield discussing his writing process. And a 1999 reissue of the album included new mixes of Freddie's Dead and Superfly as bonus tracks. I do have the CD version. It's in my storage. So the album was RIAA certified gold with 3 months of releasing for reaching 500,000 in the album sales in the U.S., with some outlets reporting global sales of 1.5 million. And the album released in universal acclaim, with Rolling Stone's Bob Donat calling it not only a superior imaginative soundtrack, but fine, funky music as well, and the best of Curtis Mayfield's 4 albums made since he left the Impressions. And rock critic Mr. Robert Christgau of Village Voice gave the album an A and lauded Mayfield's songwriting, writing that these songs peak for and to the ghetto's victims rather than its achievers, and the other side of town on Curtis, transmitting bleak lyrics through uncompromisingly Vicavez music. And Robin Katz of Disc praised the album, stating to not mistake it as a big, bad, blaring instrumental LP. And this is Curtis Mayfield combining a fine musical message with gentle vocals but powerful lyrics. And 9 tracks on the album, and what never fails to amaze me is how Mayfield balances instrumental work and lyrics without overdoing either. It is a touchy situation, but Mayfield handles it brilliantly, very brilliantly. And the album itself as well, as songs Freddie's Dead and Junkie Chase received nominations at the 15th Annual Grammy Awards, with the former also performed at the ceremony. And the rest is history. This album will always be a classic, no doubt about that. If you love funk, if you love soul, if you love blaxploitation soundtracks, this is a must to own in your collection. Gotta love Curtis Mayfield. What is your favorite song off this incredible, phenomenal, just all above and beyond classic? Don't forget to hit that like, subscribe, and comment and follow your boy. I will be glad to return. Y'all have a blessed one and stay safe. Find this record and bump it on your turntables. Peace, y'all. Have a great rest of the day, y'all.